The Bike Riders was directed by Jeff Nichols. I had never seen a film from Jeff Nichols before, but you know what? I'm going to be on the lookout for his work in the future because I really enjoyed this film. It did get a decent amount of buzz at a film festival that it screened at last year, but no earth-shattering praise that set me up with these sky-high expectations. This movie is based on a photo book of the same name, but it depicts a fictional gang called the Vandals, and we follow our main character, played by Jodie Comer, whose name is Kathy, and another character, played by Mike Faist, is interviewing her in the future about the events that took place in the film, and so we kind of flash back and forth between the interview and the events that took place in the past. It's a really cool format, and they did a good job of keeping me engaged and guessing as to what was going to happen without outright giving things away during this interview. It begins sometime in the late 60s. Kathy meets up with a friend at a bar, and what do you know, she runs into the gang, and one of its members, played by Austin Butler, whose name was Benny. I'm forgetting the names for some reason. There are a lot of names that end with Y in this movie. Benny, Johnny, Kathy, just to name a few. So these two begin a relationship, and over the course of the film, things unfold that cause some conflict within the gang, and also between these two characters. And I was just impressed by how engaged I was and curious to see where things would go next. And really what's interesting about the story in this movie to me is it's not at all what I was expecting, and I mean that in a really good way, because from the trailers, it did kind of give me the discount Scorsese vibes, you know, kind of a Goodfellas ripoff per se with bike riders. But no, this film actually feels very insightful in that this motorcycle club started out as this small social gathering, and it really was just a safe haven for like-minded guys to meet up, drink beer, smoke cigarettes, and ride around on their motorcycles. I'm not saying they were saints at the start of the film. There were certainly some shady things going on. The leader, played by Tom Hardy, Johnny, he allows people to challenge him for leadership, in which case they'll have a fist fight or a knife fight. They violate all kinds of traffic laws, and it's clear that the police forces are a bit intimidated by them, but I wouldn't call them a gang per se. However, as things begin to grow, and Johnny allows other franchises of the Vandals to open up in different states, it becomes clear that there's a lot of internal conflict between these members as the values and the moral code begins to shift more towards organized crime and what people would consider a traditional gang. Based on the trailer, I figured that we were going to be watching a movie about rival gangs fighting each other or something, but no, it's really about how this thing grew to the point that its founders no longer had a control over it. All these newer, younger generations had different ideas in mind about how things should be run. And another thing that surprised me is how much I enjoyed the supporting characters. I mean, some people show up for a very small amount of screen time and yet left a very strong impression. A couple of examples are Michael Shannon, who's always going off on some tangent that really doesn't matter to the plot, but I was still very interested and intrigued by his character. I wanted to see more of him. Same goes for Norman Reedus, who shows up as a complete outsider, and he looks like the total thug type, like a guy that's going to stir up a lot of trouble. But he actually winds up being one of the most wholesome characters in the movie. It's one of those situations where a group of these characters sitting around the campfire talking about their lives for an hour would honestly be as entertaining to me as anything else in this movie. And really, the story is about the club more so than it is about any specific character. And that's actually one of the flaws that I want to talk about. If there's anything that I wanted more of and felt like the movie needed more of, it's the relationship between Kathy and Benny. Benny himself, despite being in a relationship with our protagonist, might be the least developed member of the club, actually. We never really learn why he genuinely likes being around these guys, because he's clearly a little bit different than some of the other guys, but he, for whatever reason, wants to keep riding, and he gets into a lot of trouble. He's always that guy that's willing to rush in and throw a punch before he even knows what's going on. And despite the fact that in this interview, Kathy talks so much about Benny, I feel like there wasn't enough from Benny's side to really understand what makes him tick. It's been a while since I've seen a performance from Tom Hardy that I've enjoyed this much, though. Lots of diverse accents in the cast, and I really enjoyed his. I don't know, I feel like the guy's been miscasted a lot lately. Not that I have anything in particular against something like Venom, but I don't know, it was nice to see him back in a dramatic role, something that feels like it fits with what his skill set is as an actor. But this is definitely the case of there being an ensemble cast, and each and every member brings something to the table. One other complaint that I do have is that the ending feels a bit abrupt. So much happens in the last 15 minutes, and it covers a lot of time, and I wish that they could have fleshed some of these things out a little bit more. The Bike Riders is the rare film that I wish would have actually been a bit longer. I could have done for another 20 minutes to lengthen that epilogue a little bit and give us better closure for the characters. With that said, this was a really fun and interesting drama that essentially just chronicles the rise and fall of this motorcycle club in the late 60s. It doesn't necessarily change the game or anything, but the actors did their parts very well. It's well shot. It brings that 60s vibe to life very well. And the needle drops, while maybe being a little excessive, definitely put a smile on my face. I'm going to give The Bike Riders 4 stars. So those are my thoughts on the film. As always, I encourage you to drop down into the comments and let me know what you think of the film if you do go out and see it. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe while you're at it if you guys want to see more content like this, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.